I'm at an embarrassing level of understanding here. I tend to go into these things, with like a fantasy of me putting it all together, using my intuition, getting into the writer's head, and using my intuition for how these games are put together to guess the answer to all of the mysteries long before they're actually revealed. And this, whether it's my fault or not, this particular story is humiliating me because I really don't have anything feasible to really explain what's going on. There's so many different pieces of evidence that contradict each other. And because they can't choose the right side of the contradiction, I don't really have a lead. I don't have a foothold. I don't have a hook to get into and start unraveling everything with. The biggest contradiction being Uni's in these two places. He's at Svea and he's in the shelter cabin. And the characters and I, both the writer and me, both kind of agreed that indicates that what's happening in Svea, what's happening in the shelter cabin is happening at different times. Because there is not a very big precedent for having the same person occur two ages at the same time in Uchikoshi's games and his co-writers. However, the characters meet at the end. Kokoro meets with Satoru, finally. So I put my head down into like my hands and that put it closer to the microphone. And the weather between the two places lines up, and the season lines up, indicating that these two things are happening at the same time. But they're happening at the same place at the same time, with something different being imposed on that reality. If you would think that if Satoru could go to the shelter cabin by just walking outside of Svea, that he would have. And the shelter cabin line has like a line that shows stuff that you'd expect the shelter cabin to be. There is stuff about that suggests that it's actually on Mount Akakura. For example, you could actually go to the summit of the mountain and not wind up at the ocean sometimes. And so, you start coming up with these kludgy things where, kludgy is not the right word, kludgy refers to something that you keep expanding and it gets out of control. These ideas where maybe like there's multiple versions of what's going on at the shelter cabin and you're swapping between them. And there's some sort of trading places between Kokoro and herself. Which I suppose they could do. It's pretty hard to keep track of. But like, there is one thing that is pretty obvious to the viewer, and it definitely wants the viewer to think about, which makes it not so obscure, which makes it not the best lead, but also the characters don't know it. And that is the muteness of Sujukaje, or however you pronounce it, Hotori. Suzukaje. Because Kokoro is never communicated, so they've gone through all of Kokoro's route, in her writings or her voice recordings, that to her, Hotori is mute. Satoru doesn't know that. And so they don't have a discussion about this. Satoru just thinks she's not mute, can speak just fine, and Kokoro thinks she's mute. And so because it's not something the characters seem to discuss, there is some suggestion that this is actually like a key. This is something you need to unravel. And again, I don't really have way to unravel this. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. They did come up with, maybe Uni is teleporting back and forth in sync with me. That was Kokoro's theory. But if she figured out that was wrong when he didn't leave, when Satoru always has indeed met Uni. But maybe something else is happening in sync with the body swapping. Because the body swapping does seem to have some sort of structure to it. The swap happens only for 33 minutes each time. So somebody could be swapping in. Sorry, there's a strap I use to play a musical instrument on my seat that I flicked there. There does seem because you could try to like apply that to a different character, um, and that would be Hotori, right? Her muting and unmuting happens. Well, what's exactly happening to Hotori? Way back a long time ago when I first started recording this game, like I had this idea that maybe Hotori, or as she was introduced at the time, Inhibushi Kaiko, it didn't actually have did. She was just body swapping. Because the other characters who were accused of having did were body swapping. Well, the thing is though, we figured out that the number of personalities she had was like 15, according to the forensic investigators. So that whole idea that she's actually body swapping as opposed to having did started to fall apart. But we're actually observing her in the game, and she doesn't appear to have 15 personalities. She appears to have one. Now, this one personality has gotten lewd and has gotten crazy and violent, but she hasn't changed to a different personality with a different set of memories. It's just her changing mood. It's more like she's like bipolar than she is like having personality swaps. So it's like what the police people came up with seems to be completely baloney almost. It just doesn't line up. I don't know how they came up with that. So maybe then she is actually body swapping, but she's not actually body swapping it. The murderer swaps in. She might be the murderer herself, although I doubt there's still a very high chance he's not the murderer. She's not the murderer herself. It's actually what happens. The mute person is actually swapping in. But the mute person has some sort of agenda where they don't want people to know they're swapping in. So they're doing everything they can to pretend that they are the original Suzukaje Hotori. So what that would mean is they claim the same name, and they try to continue to mimic the actions of Hotori wherever Hotori left off when they swap in. So if Hotori seems all mad or something, then when the mute person swaps in, she's also going to go, oh, I think she was mad because of the pose she's in. I'm going to keep being mad. And she's like putting up an act putting up like an act to make it seem like she's trying to make it seem like she's not actually swapping in it. She's actually she's trying to hide that for some reason. Although so they go, okay, who is this mute person and where are they swapping from? Well, it's somewhere cold, suggested, or warm. It's somewhere with different weather. And you would think because of the closed cast nature of the Infinity series, the mute person would have to be like one of the characters we already know. So you go like, but we don't think Lin is swapping in because she doesn't turn into Hotori. Uni doesn't ever turn into Hotori. No, the characters we know about actually turn into Hotori. So it makes my theory, like my really lame theory right now, really fall apart. It's very weak. Even still, though, Hotori's muteness seems to have a lot of importance. If I could figure that out, I might be able to figure out the whole rest of it. Yeah, I think of Hotori. I know you could say the world was really nice to her because they didn't like execute her, but man, that is not a very fun life. She's been injected with tranquilizers. I don't know what the long-term side effects of that are. Some people are out to kill her, and they probably don't care about the side effects of what they do to her in the meantime. They would torture her and kill her. Very nice seeing people otherwise. Have you ever heard of something called a lobotomy? Well, there isn't any evidence that Hotori's been lobotomized in the game so far, other than she has a weird personality that's a mute, which I guess you could end up mute if you were lobotomized if it was done in a certain way. But lobotomy is like the epitome of man-made horrors beyond comprehension. And stuff reminds me of it every once in a while, and it's just like hard to not mention it when it happens. Anyway. I mean, Hotori would be like a prime candidate for that in the 50s, 60s. Oof. So we were where we left off, I believe. Satoru got tranquilized, but he's going to do that if I just believe I can get up, despite being tranquilized, kind of thing. And um, what's her name? Utsumi is trying to kill Kotori. As far as we understand, however, she did not confirm it specifically. So it's not 100% guaranteed that's what she's trying to do, but like 95% guaranteed that's what she's trying to do. Yeah, it's so far. I really don't know what's going on. It's just too far-fetched. It's just too weird. Okay, first I tried focusing all my nerves into my fingertips. I was barely able to move my pinky. Quickly, so as not to forget that sensation, I fired off commands to my ring, middle, and index fingers. Using this method like a magic spell, I turned my entire body back on, little by little. I tirelessly continued my work. Eventually, I found myself able to move my hands up to my palms, and then the feelings returned to my arms, and gradually I regained control of my feet. Although that said, I was still unable to lift my body. I crawled along the floor, chasing after Utsumi. That translates to damn it, apparently. However, that's spelled wrong. It's D-A-M-N-I-T. The word leaked out before I could think. I don't know if anybody cares about the spelling of damn it. My vocal cords seemed to be showing signs of recovery. She probably shot me with a powerful tranquilizer. In spite of that, why could I still move like this? Because anime. It could be that this specific type of tranquilizer had already been administered to me several times in the past. So my resistance to the drug was already quite high. Oh dear. Oh my goodness. Man, she is cruel. Okay, as I pondered that, I'd somehow managed to reach the living area. Utsumi has become the villain real quick here. Serious villain. Utsumi was standing at the door to Hotori's room. Something glinted in her right hand. I stood up, leaning unsteadily against the wall. One step at a time, I began to approach her. She hadn't noticed me yet. I moved forward with the utmost care, trying not to make a sound. If I lose focus even for a second, I'll fall over. My vision warped and swirled dizzily. The images reflected in my eyes were vague and hazy, so I wasn't sure if I was even heading in the right direction. Relying only on the feel of the wall beneath my fingers, I continued through the darkness. Finally, I drew right up beside Utsumi. Her hand was on the doorknob. Now, I recall that at this point, Satoru's hand is already cut. So this isn't a way for him he doesn't get injured here, if I recall. So that takes the stress out of reading this. Slowly, she began to turn it. And right after that, faster than the eye could see, I grabbed her wrist. Ha! Never releasing my hold, I covered her body with mine as though in an embrace. The momentum carried me to the floor, bringing her down along with me, and we rolled across the floor in a tangle. I hadn't planned on it, but I ended up pinning her down. She's lying face up on the floor, and I am right on top of her. She struggled below me, all my body weight pressing down against her. In her right hand was a horribly sharp knife. A kitchen knife. She probably pulled it out of the cupboard after I fell over in the dining area. I held it tightly by the wrists, refusing to let go. My body felt like an old tin toy with its parts rusted together, but the strength of my hands, at least, never wavered. Move. Let me go. What are you doing? No, I won't let go. As long as I'm here, I won't. I won't let anyone die. My joints creaking, I pulled away from her. Pinning her wrist with my left hand, I pulled the knife from her with my right. Then I hurled it away into the living area. The dry sound of the kitchen knife disappeared into the darkness. Maybe it was because of the relief I felt, but as soon as I heard that noise, I was attacked by an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. I rolled powerlessly to the floor beside her. She didn't even allow me a moment of rest. She suddenly sprang onto me, grabbed me by the torso, and pulled me violently to my feet.
どうして邪魔するのよ!
Why are you interfering?
あなたには関係ないことじゃない!
This has nothing to do with you.
なのになんで!
So why? Why? It's such a weird thing to say, because most people, if someone's going to kill somebody, even if it's someone they don't know, going to kill someone that they also don't know, unless that person is holding a gun, there's certain situations where you really can't do anything, you tend to step in and prevent it. It's like something you naturally would do. Yes? I didn't have enough strength left to fight back. I went limp, my head lolled on my shoulders like a doll's.
どうしてみんな分かってくれないの?
Why doesn't anyone understand?
あの女は殺されても当然の人間なのよ.
That girl is a natural-born killer.
いえ、人間なんかじゃないわ.
No, she's not even a girl, not even human.
あいつは悪魔よ.
She's a demon.
彼女をこのまま生かしておいたら、もっと犠牲者が出るに決まってる.
If you let her live, I guarantee there will be even more victims.
なのに.
So,
なぜ?
why?
なんでみんな彼女のことをかばおうとするの?
Why does everyone try to protect her?
どうしてあいつは今でもこんなところでのうのうと生きていられるのよ.
How can you allow a demon like her to live a carefree everyday life?
純一は
Even though Junichi was.
あの子はあんなひどい殺され方をしたっていうのに.
Even though he was killed so horribly.
私は絶対許さない.
I will never forgive her.
許さない。許さない。許さない。
I will never forgive her.
殺してやるわ。必ず。
I will kill her no matter what. Utsumi had finally revealed her true nature. Her calm face had been torn away, replaced with that of a demon. Her long silver hair was disheveled, her pupils abnormally wide. A pattern of hives had begun to mar her brown skin. Livid veins spread cracks across her face, shouting it until she looked no different from a corpse. The only thing visible there were the warped features of a cruel, murderous monster, all human blood frozen and immobile in her veins. As if Utsumi had summoned a demon to claim Hotori, but found herself possessed instead. The way she looked, you could almost believe she was playing the part of a villain in some tragic melodrama. Yes, but the murderous aura she now emanated was no different than that of a mental patient capable of flying into a killing rage at any moment. Right? A hatred and a grudge this strong could almost certainly be considered an illness. An illness to which, over time, an ordinary human being might succumb. And if that's true, Utsumi was most likely attempting to expel the sickness from her body by killing Hotori. Now that was any different from what Hotori had done during the Iwazumi incident. This is like the reverse down with the sickness, where it's like the mom who's down with the sickness. There wasn't even a fragment of anything like a great ideal here. You could even say she was driven only by the mad brutality festering inside her. I pitied her. Her condition didn't inspire even the slightest feeling of anger or hatred within me. Only a deep, deep sadness. Jesting. It doesn't say what happens? I hadn't seen Utsumi once since then. She had shut herself in her room and wouldn't come out. The door was firmly locked from the inside. Hotori continued her daily routine with no apparent changes. She seemed to be completely oblivious to the fact that Utsumi was out to kill her. Hotori was currently playing with Uni in a corner of the living area. No, not more Kagome. From time to time, she would smile brilliantly as they played.
21か.
Oh, so close. 21, huh?
隣だったらダブルリーチだったんだけどな.
If you'd only picked the run right next to it, it would have been a double match point. Are they going to play mental guts? Is that going to come up at some point? The more I saw how calm she was, the deeper my mind sank into depression. Behind me, right on the other side of a single thin wall, the personification of madness itself was hiding. Even now, she might be waiting for a chance to slaughter Hotori. If I could simply feel hatred or anger towards Utsumi right now, it would be much simpler. With justice as my shield, I could stand against her. But I don't. I understand Utsumi's feelings, the feelings of a mother deprived of her own child. I can't blame her. I can't scorn her. Compassion and pity truly are awe-inspiring, I thought. I couldn't do anything for them. For Utsumi or for Hotori. All I could do was protect Hotori and try to take precautions in case Utsumi snapped. What drove me to neither a sense of duty nor of justice, but simply my own clumsy instinct. I headed to the kitchen and downed a glass of water. I hadn't slept a wink last night, and now drowsiness was advancing upon me. I'd really wanted a cup of coffee, but I remembered that MAO inhibitor and changed my mind. Of course, I couldn't very well go nap in my room. I had to guard Hotori. If I took my eyes off her for even a second, Utsumi might use the opportunity to rush out of her room. But then Uni was right there beside her, and even with the way she was right now, I don't think Utsumi would lay a hand on him, but just in case, I decided to let Uni know.
なあ、ユニちょっといいか
Hey, Uni, got a moment? I called out to him as I headed into the living area.
今一番いいところなんだから
Not now, we're in the middle of a showdown. I guess he's talking about his game with Hotori. I immediately understood what they were playing. A game where the player writes numbers from 1 to 25 in 5x5 square. Then take turns calling out a number and painting out the squares. Painting? Pointing? A kind of bingo commonly called 25. Sphia is the kind of environment with nothing to do, so the only thing you can do is kill time with these primitive games.
それじゃあ18
It's like, playing solitaire till dawn with a deck of 51. Anyway. Then 18. So we're going to get into some sort of numbers thing here, which means I need to pay close attention.
本当に18でいいの
18, are you sure about that?
じゃあ21
Well then, 21.
21はさっき言ったじゃん
You already said 21.
どっちが
Yeah, who did?
ユニが
You did.
嘘僕言ってないよ21なんて
Correct, he didn't. I did not say 21, you liar. And as far as we're aware, he did, and indeed did not say 21, because Hotori was like, oh, if only you would have said 21. So why is Hotori lying?
おいユニ頼むよ
Hey, Uni, come on.
すぐ終わるからさ
It won't take long.
もううるさいな
Sheesh, you're so annoying.
ごめんホトリちょっと待ってて
Sorry, Hotori, will you give me a moment? Uni set down the pencil and paper he'd been holding and ran over to me.
何
What?
あのなユニ
Hey, Uni.
突然だが頼みたいことがあるんだ
Sorry it's so sudden, but I want to ask you a favor.
頼みたいこと
Favor?
こ
Yeah.
れからしばらくの間どんなことがあってもほとりと内海さんから目を離さないでくれ
Whatever happens, please keep an eye on Hotori and Utsumi-san for a while.
なんで
Yeah, why is
な
that?
んでもだ
Because I say so.
とにかくほとりと内海さんを二人っきりにしないでほしいんだ
Anyway, don't leave Hotori alone with Utsumi-san.
んホトリとカーリーって喧嘩でもしてるの
Huh? Are Hotori and Callie having a fight?
まあそんなようなもんだ
Well, you could say that.
だから頼む
So please, I'm counting on you. Falling! I just saturated my mic.
なんだかよくわからないけど
I don't really get it, but
いいよ二人を見張ってればいいんだね
I just have to keep an eye on them, right?
ありがとう助かるよ
Thanks a lot.
話はそれだけ
Is that it? Yeah.
じゃあ戻ってもいい
So I can go back
いい
now?
けど今言ったことを忘れんなよ
Sure, but don't forget what I just said, okay?
わかってるよ
I got it already.
大丈夫大丈夫任しといて
It'll be fine, just fine. Leave everything to me. Uni thumped his chest, then returned to Hotori. Pure Eternus, which sounds Latin, and I don't know Latin. I don't know that much Latin. I returned to my room for my coat and headed outside. Just like yesterday, it was sunny. The clear winter air was incredibly refreshing. Though it's not like I came out here for the air. I thought I'd check up on Itsumi's condition. The door to her room was still shut and locked, and when I knocked, no reply came. That's why I decided to look through her window. I began to walk clockwise around the outside of the building, but she already left through the window, I suppose, right? And they were going to get swapped in the middle of this conversation we're about to have. In no time, I was standing outside my target window. I immediately noticed something odd. The window was open. Peeking into the room, I found it completely empty.
おいおい、どこ行っちまったんだ？
Hey now, where did you go? Maybe she's in the bathroom. I discarded that idea the minute it came to me. The snow beneath the window, there are footprints there other than mine. Though rather than footprints, they were more like tracks that someone had dug through the snow. The snow had risen here and there in uneven mounds, forming a trail, as though someone had crawled underneath it. I followed that trail. The trail weaved across the ground like the corridor contours of the Rias coastline. It's like, you found Bugs Bunny? When I thought the path was going to zig, it zagged. A rise I expected to find in one place turned in another direction completely. In that sense, it's more like an insect trail, wandering unsteadily across the snowfield. Eventually, I reached the wall. At the end of the trail was Utsumi. She stood slightly apart from the wall, petrified like an old tree. Her back was turned to me, so I couldn't see her face. I leapt through the snow, steadily making my way over to her. I approached her from the side. There was something like a notebook in her hand. She was absent-mindedly staring at its open pages. She didn't seem to be aware of me at all.
何やってんだよ、こんなとこで。
What are you doing out here? At the sound of my voice, her head shot up. She turned and fixed me with a sharp glare. She thrust the notebook, or whatever it was, behind her back. I never saw any footage of some anime called Death Note, but I have heard of it. Slowly, she drew back toward the wall.
なんだよそれ。
What's that? She didn't answer me. Her eyes that stared at me were cloudy and sunken. I suddenly glanced down at her feet. She was barefoot. Blistered raw from the cold, her feet were bright red and swollen below the ankles.
内海さん。
Sumi-san. I murmured pity in my voice. She continued her retreat. Her back struck the wall and her body trembled furiously, in time to the pounding of her heart. Although it wasn't possible for her to retreat any further, her feet continued their backward scramble, her bare feet sliding on the white surface. Big white flecks of snow clung to them. I advanced with decisive steps.
何よ。来ないでよ。近づかないで。
What is it? Don't come any closer. Stay away from me. Her sharp voice cut through the frozen atmosphere. The face that Utsumi turned to me was gruesome and filled with menace. Unfazed, I continued forward, narrowing the distance between us. I grabbed hold of her arm. Strengthening my hold, I jerked her forward.
やめて。離して。離してよ。
Stop it. Let me go. Let me go. I let her continue her futile struggling as I admonished her.
いや、話すわけにはいかない。
Nope, I'm not letting you go.
部屋に戻るんだ。
Go back to your room.
やだ。やめて。
No. 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 Stop it. As she continued to thrash about, and I tried somehow to calm her down, something slipped from her hand and went flying. Spinning like a shot bird, it fell to the snow. Throwing off my hand, she went running over to the fallen object. Reacting immediately, I chased after her. One of her feet got caught in the snowbank and she fell forward. But even that didn't halt her movement, and she was soon dragging herself through the snow on her hands and knees. I strode past her and picked up the object. It wasn't a notebook, but a file folder. I flipped it open. Inside was a clear sheet protector that held several photos. Okay, it's not like the Cure syndrome file. That's still something that has not showed up in this game that you would expect to show up, but at this point I don't think it will. I don't think we're going to hear about Cure so far. The first was of a baby. This was probably taken a few months after birth. The newborn baby was laughing happily in the picture. The color of its hair and skin was very similar to Utsumi's, and its eyes and nose somehow resembled Yomogi's. Is this baby the new life Yomogi was talking about last night? I turned the page. Page after page were all pictures of the same baby. However, alone on the very last page was a boy. In a red cap, a white t-shirt, shorts, and sneakers. That was probably a park. There's probably a park behind him in the shot. Awash with the brilliant sunlight, he was aiming a peace sign at the camera. A mysterious little boy with light brown skin. Could this be Junichi-kun? Suddenly the file was snatched away from me. Utsumi was hunched over like an elderly woman, clutching the file to her chest. Sorrow was written plainly across her downcast face. The reason it doesn't make sense to me that that the new life would be the new baby, because the implication from Yomogi was that Utsumi got pregnant with that baby after the baby that's like the gift from Juniko after Juniko died. But he said to Kogoro that Juniko became an older brother. And it would seem odd for him to say that if the baby was born after he died. It might make sense, but it seems a little odd. Her mouth hung open, and from it escaped an inhuman groan. Her silver hair disheveled, her pupils abnormally wide. Blood-red hives standing on the surface of her brown skin. It was all exactly like the way I'd seen her this morning, her features warped and crazed, as though she'd been possessed by a demon.
あなたも狙ってるのね。
You are after him too, aren't you?
11をあなたも
Junichi, you are after him too. A deep pain throbbed in my chest. As though I were being gutted, slowly torn apart, I felt as though my heart was about to break.
さん帰ろ
Sumi-san, let's go back. I was finally able to whisper.
帰る
Go
ど
back?
こに帰るっていうのよ。
Where are you asking me to go back to?
私には帰るべき場所なんてどこにも。
I have nowhere to
う
go.
帰るべき場所か
Place to go back to, huh?
そんなことないだろ
That's not true,
あな
right?
たには
You still have... So this from the file, right? She still has a child. And Yomogi. So... Does she not have Yomogi? I really want to pick Yomogi, not the child. But the thing is, like, you'd expect you to pick the child you just learned about. Because you just learned about it. Like, it's like leading you into that choice, right? By showing you that file. And this shows you no more information, right? Whereas this, you know, doesn't show you no more information. So, like, my heart says, pick Yomogi. My mind says, pick a child. I'm gonna go with my mind. Hopefully I won't be wrong.
子供がいるじゃないか
Child, don't you?
去年の8月に生まれた赤ん坊が
A baby born last August. No, he doesn't understand the timeline.
その赤ん坊はあなたのことを待ってるはずだ
That baby is waiting for you.
だからその子のいるところがあなたの帰るべき場所で
That's why wherever the baby is, that's the place you should return to.
なんで知ってるの？
How did you know?
え
What?
どうして8月に生まれたって知ってるのよ。
How did you know the birth was in August?
それはよもぎさんに聞いたからだ
Because I heard it from Yomogi-san.
ゆうべ彼はこう言ってた
He told me last night
予定日は8月だって
that the due date was in August.
ということは赤ん坊が生まれたのは去年の8月で
That means the baby would have been born last August, right?
あなた何言ってるの？
What are you saying?
まったくどう説明すりゃいいんだ
Ah, geez, how do I explain it?
多分 信じてもらえないと思うけど、
You probably won't believe me,
俺
but
は1年前のヨモギさんに会ったんだ。
I met the Yomogi of 1 year ago.
赤倉岳で。
I met Akakura.
だから純一君のことも赤ん坊のことも知ってるんだ。
That's why I know about Junichi-kun and your baby.
彼から直接聞いたんだよ。
I heard it from him.
わけのわからないこと言わないで。
Stop talking nonsense.
あなた頭おかしいんじゃないの？
Is there something wrong with your head?
それはこっちのセリフだ。
That's my line.
今のあなたはとても正気とは思えない。
I don't think you're in your right mind either.
頼むから元の内海さんに戻ってくれ。
I'm begging you, please go back to the old Utsumi-san.
私は正気よ。
I'm perfectly sane.
何にも知らないくせにふざけたこと言わないでよ。
Saying all this even when you don't know a thing. Don't toy with me.
あなたに何がわかるっていうの？
What do you know?
純一はあの子は犬伏恵子に殺された。
Junichi, that child, was killed by Inubushi Keiko.
あなたはその上っ面の事実だけしか知らない。
You only think you know the facts.
一人のとある少年が殺された。それでおしまい。
That some boy was murdered. That's the extent of
純
it.
一がどんな子供だったのか、私とあの子がどんな日常を送ってきたのか
Things like what kind of child Junichi was, how we spent our daily life together.
知らないでしょ。
You don't know that, do you? Saying that, she silently began to tell me her story, while fighting back the tears that threatened to overflow from her eyes, while just standing barefoot in snow. Her eyes fell on one of the photographs. Yomogi Junichi-kun. Age of death, 9 years old. On the day of his 9th birthday, he departed this world. Mischievous, willful, always causing trouble. And yet an unusually lonely and clingy child. At night, he had a bad dream he would crawl into his mother's bed and fall asleep. And if he wanted her smell, he'd press his nose against her arm. As soon as the sun rose, he'd leap out of bed and bounce around with the energy of a kitten. He loved doing dangerous things so much that he once climbed up the chimney of a public bathhouse, causing a great ruckus. All the adults gathered together trying to persuade him to come down, but he wouldn't leave the chimney. Later, we found out that he'd frozen in fear and couldn't get down. And then dusk fell, Yomogi finally came to save him. Yomogi didn't scold his son with harsh words. He just smiled quietly and gently patted his head. And Junichi-chan cried at the top of his lungs. Sobbing and wailing even after he ran out of tears, he cried and cried. I'm sorry, over and over again, he apologized as he clung tightly to Yomogi's leg. He was a boy of ever-changing emotions. When he laughed, it was with his whole heart, and when he cried at the top of his lungs. He was 5 years old the first time he was sent out on an errand. Instead of cabbage, he accidentally bought lettuce. Well, I could see that. And Utsumi said, "What a pity, and I was going to make cabbage rolls for dinner." When he saw that... Whoops. I don't know what I did there. Stop it. Okay. How do I get out of the fast forward? I don't know what I hit. There we go. Okay. Ugh, hit a delete on the numpad. Numpad period. Okay. Too many keys I can accidentally hit. When he saw the troubled expression on his mother's face, Junichi frantically tried to play dumb. But the old man at the store told me. While trying to best to make excuses, his eyes began to overflow with tears. I'm saying it's fine. I said it's fine. So, I gave him the money like you told me, and I got the right change too, see? I said it's fine. The old man said so. He was probably so ashamed he couldn't bear it, and he cried. Uzumi wanted to comfort him, so she spoke to him gently, but the more she tried to comfort him, the harder he cried. He was a crybaby. Athletics was the one area where he excelled, and the training wheels came off his bike while he was still in kindergarten. Of all the neighborhood children, he was the first. He must have been very pleased with that, because he showered his bicycle with love after that. One day he decided to go shopping together in the next town over. Yomogi and Utsumi had intended to go there by train, but Juniko-kun wanted to bike there no matter what and wouldn't listen. In the end, he rode there on his bike by himself while his parents took the train. On that very day, there was an accident and all the trains were stopped. Having reached their destination first, he smiled proudly. He hadn't learned how to wink yet. As he squeezed both eyes shut in an attempt to look gallant. That's why I said that bikes were faster. By the time he'd started elementary school, he could even ride it with no hands. Even when going downhill, even when passing a car, he wouldn't stop. Stop doing that, it's dangerous. Even after Utsumi scolded him, he continued riding like that, his face supremely unconcerned. Random statement. I cannot ride a bike with no hands, and I'm an adult. I just have not figured out, I just can't do it. He would ride around everywhere, over hill and dale, until nightfall in early spring. He'd come back from the field soaked and covered in mud. He was covered in scratches and scrapes all year round. When the three of them went skiing, he would ascend to the peak alone and come back down safely. Perhaps he'd inherited his love of dangerous things from his father. Utsumi thought it was charming to have a child like that. His dirty clothes would be quite troublesome to clean, though. Mischievous, willful, always causing trouble, and yet an unusually lonely and clingy child. Evening came. Junichi-kun would crawl into his mother's futon and fall asleep. Yomogi was right there beside them. The three of them slept side by side, the very picture of a happy family. Sleep, sleep, sleep. In summer, they slept under a single thin sheet. The wind would blow in gently through the open screen door. The wind chime would ring. In autumn, they changed to a thick blanket. The wind would begin to grow colder outside. The fallen leaves would rustle as they tumbled about. Winter came and Yomogi would disappear. In order to support the two of them, he risked his life climbing snowy mountains. Mother and child would embrace each other, waiting for Yomogi to return. How would you make money climbing mountains, though? Even in the city, it would begin to snow. Down and down it would come until it lay thick on the ground. And then spring would come again. As soon as the sun rose, Junichi would start bouncing around. He'd come home caked in mud. Many days passed this way, then months, then years. Time passed in an instant. And then, on January 1st, 2009...
この子がどんな殺され方をしたのか。
You know how he
あなた
died?
知ってる？
He got sliced open with half a pruning shear by a girl.
心臓は綺麗な桃色してたわ。
His heart was such a pretty pink.
細い肋骨は透き通るような白で、
His ribs were white and thin. They looked transparent.
顔だけが無傷のまま残ってたの。
His face was the only part of him left uninjured,
赤く染まってたけどね。
but it was stained red.
私、それを拭ってあげて。
So I wiped it
ど
off.
んな顔してたと思う？
How do you think his face looked?
安らかな寝顔？
Was it a peaceful, sleeping face?
布団に潜り込んできた時みたいな甘えた顔？
A sweet face like the times he'd crawl into my futon?
それともあの時みたいに泣きべそをかいてたのかな？
That was the sad, crying face he'd made back then?
違うわ。
No, he's gonna say it's like abject terror.
あの子はね、
His
普
face
通に顔を歪めてたのよ。
was warped in
地
agony.
獄の底で炎に焼かれてるみたいな苦悶の顔。
It was a face of anguish as though he were burning in the deepest pits of hell.
血まみれになった口が張り裂けそうなほど開いてた。
His lips were opened so wide they looked like they were about to split apart.
何かを叫ぼうとしているかのように。
As if he were trying to scream.
これで分かったでしょ。
Now you understand, right?
私はあの女を殺すわ。
I'm going to kill her,
どんなことがあっても。
no matter what.
だから邪魔しないで。
So, stay out of my way.
あなたに迷惑はかけないから。
I won't cause you any
お
trouble.
願い。
Please. Saying that, she left. I couldn't call out to her to stop. For the next few moments, I could only stand still, unable to think, except that I felt a chill deep within my chest as if it were frozen. He's about to get swapped. My heart was trembling. Like a marionette with its strings cut, I fell to my knees in the recent disturbed snow. Yes. Transference. Before I noticed that transfer had occurred. My body had changed, but my heart hadn't. I felt as depressed as ever, as though I were gasping at for breath at the bottom of a quagmire. I couldn't stop thinking about Itsumi, and Junichi, and the baby, and Yomogi. The very same Yomogi was here now, in the corner of the room. Sitting atop a bundle of firewood, he was staring intently at the palms of his hands. An axe was leaned against the wall beside him. At that point, I realized what was happening. The room looked different from last night. The table was gone, so were the chairs. The floor was covered with fine splinters, which means they'd chopped it all up for firewood. They'd run out of fuel. The atmosphere in the room was grave, so dark and tangible you could almost cut it with a knife. Nobody dared to open their mouth. Lynn was sitting beside her bed, her arms folded. She stared at the floorboards, furred by splinters with a blank look in her eyes. Uni stood at the window, looking outside. Present time, 3:57 p.m. Beyond the window, everything was dyed a deep red. The setting sun cast a gloomy light over the room. Mingling with the aura of unrest, the light took on a bewitching color. As time passed, the shadows deepened. The night gradually crept up on us. I could almost hear its footsteps. The beating of my own heart was disturbingly loud. No time, I have no time. I could only be at the shelter cabin for 33 minutes. I took a look at Kokoro's wristwatch and saw the moment drawing nearer by the second. Spurred on by that feeling of urgency, my mind finally cleared. It's useless to keep thinking about Itsumi. Right now I need to worry about the shelter cabin. About the transference phenomenon. That's right, there's still something I need to talk to Uni about. The question I kept missing my chance to ask. The important question I'd been putting off. I drew closer to where he stood. I grabbed him by the shoulders and spun him around to face me. Uni.
どうしたの突然。
What's wrong all of a
聞
sudden?
きたいことがある。答えてくれ。
There's something I want to ask you. Please answer me.
何
What? Uni was visibly upset. Overwhelmed by the forcefulness of my actions, he
お前
faltered.
は
You. Biting off my words, I stopped and stole a glance at Yomogi and Lin. But I didn't care anymore. I didn't care if they heard me. That no longer mattered. I was running out of time. Without hesitation, I
お
spoke.
前は2012年のユニだな。
Are you the Uni from 2012?
何のこと
What do you...
とぼけんなよ。
Quit playing dumb.
お前は1年後の未来からこの世界にやってきた。
You came to this world from 1 year in the future.
逆にこの世界にいるはずだったユニの方は1年後のスフィアに飛ばされて。
And in your place, the Uni who should be in this world ended up in the sphere of 2012.
そうなんだろ。
Isn't that
お前
right?
は何もかも知ってるはずだ。
You should know everything.
知らないよそんなこと
I don't. I have no idea about that.
嘘つくなよ。
Don't lie to me.
教えてくれ。
Tell me
一体
what happened.
何があったって言うんだ。
Tell me what happened.
どうしてお前は1年前の赤倉岳に戻ってきたりしたんだ。
Why'd you return to the Mount Akakura of 2011?
何のために。
Why?
何を企んでるんだお前は。
What the hell are you planning? I frantically shook him, pressing him for a reply. Then all of a sudden, he ran outside, right? Ah! Uni screamed as though he'd gone mad. Twisting out of my grip, he broke into a run. He threw open the door of the cabin with all his might.
待てユニ。どこ行くんだ。
Wait, Uni, where are you going? Deaf to my attempts to stop him, he dove out into the snowfield. I ran out after him. I plunged into the fallen snow. The sunset had dyed its surface a deep crimson. Striding across it, I ran, kicking up snow as I went. But in spite of my efforts, it didn't look like I stood the slightest chance of catching up to him. Uni was getting away from me, springing across the frozen surface with the agility of a snow rabbit. Meanwhile, I could only trudge awkwardly through it. Of course, this is another person's body. A woman's body.
ユニユニ
Uni. Except my voice doesn't sound like a woman's because the voice acting is weird like that. I shouted towards his back, which grew ever smaller in the distance. Without turning around, he barreled up the gentle slope of the hill. Does he get to this? Ah, phooey. Real. Uni disappeared from sight. And not just Uni. The snowfield, the gentle slope of the hill, and the vast sky had all vanished too. The only thing that remained the same was the bewitching madder red surrounding me. Only that, and nothing more. Present time, 4:30 p.m.
So.
Damn it! Once again, I failed to get the truth out of Uni. Refusing to dwell on it, I quickly left the room. When in Sphia, I had no choice but to focus on matters in Sphia. Hotori's room. When I opened the door, I found her and Uni lying down on the bed.
どうしたの？
What's wrong? I felt slightly relieved at the sight of her safe. Uni was keeping his promise to keep an eye on her.
なんでもないんだ。
No, it's nothing. Without saying another word, I left the room. Next, Utsumi's. The door was unlocked, but I couldn't see her anywhere inside the room. I heard sounds coming from the bathroom indicating that she was taking a shower, though. I closed the door, trying not to make a sound, and returned to the living area. I let my body sink into the sofa. Clasping both hands behind my head, I heaved a sigh. All my nerves were on the edge, but I couldn't calm down. I couldn't possibly calm down. Utsumi's out to kill Otori. Someone's out to kill me. The shelter cabin's run out of fuel. Yuni's behavior there is as baffling as it
どう
gets.
してこんなことになっちまったのかな。
How the heck did it come to this? How many times have I recited those very same words by now? Thinking back, it's always January 11th. It all began after I went up to the clock tower. Why I did that, I still don't know. I'm not even sure how I got up there in the first place. The entrance leading to the roof of the clock tower, I didn't know where it was. All of a sudden, I remembered something. Back on January 11th, when I asked Utsumi why I went up to the clock tower.
あなたを最後に見かけたのは確か3時半を回った頃だったかしら。
The last time I saw you, if I recall correctly, was around 3:30 p.m.
階段を降りていく後ろ姿がリビングの方から。
I just saw you from behind, going down the stairs from the living area. She'd said something like that, correct? Going down the stairs? Yes, of course you would think that the entrance to the clock tower would be from the basement. Right, I haven't commented on that, but that's pretty clear, right? Why would I need to go down the stairs to go up the clock tower? When it comes to stairs, I can only think of one possibility here. The stairs leading down to the storeroom. I sprang up from the sofa and decided to head there. I went down the stairs and reached the storeroom. I found some crates piled up unnaturally in the corner. I moved them out of the way. A door came into view. I found it so quickly it was almost a little anticlimactic. Just like when I opened the first gate. Had I, by any chance, known about the store from the start? I had that feeling. There was this card reader terminal on the wall beside the door. The Sphia front gate opened with the ID card. So maybe this door, too. I pulled the card out of my pocket and inserted it into the reader. The door opened. I didn't get to the clock tower. I pushed it open and stepped into the darkness as if drawn in. Well, we're back to Ever 17. Here we go. On the other side of the door, an empty room spread out in the dim light. Where am I? Squinting, I look around. I took a look around. It was a small room. I walked around, ascertaining its layout. There was an iron door on the left side of the room. Another room deeper underground. I decided to leave that door for later and continue with my examination. Next to the door was an enormous machine resembling a supercomputer. It was currently operational. I could hear the dull sound of the fan echoing through the room. On the other side was a single chair, enshrined by a bank of control panels. Classic Uchikoshi, always a supercomputer. There's always a supercomputer. Above the panels was an array of monitor screens. Images reflected on each monitor barely illuminated the gray room. And the security camera, they're like showing inside every room, right? This is so classic. I don't know why I didn't predict this, because this always happens. Upon further inspection, they appeared to be showing areas of Sphia. This turns out to be all a TV show. No. Every private room, the living area, the kitchen, the basement, the storeroom, the front entrance, the gate, the basketball court. This could be a surveillance room. I never noticed them, but it looked like Sphia had hidden cameras positioned everywhere. It's obvious if you think about it. The facility is a specified psychiatric hospital for isolation and aegis. Of course, there would be equipment for keeping the inmates under surveillance. Nevertheless, what happened to the guards supposed to be stationed here, or any of the staff for that matter? The question that had nagged me earlier reared its head once more. I believe he's here, but he's about to not be here anymore because he's about to die. There's another room back there. Where did it lead? Going by the layout of the upper floor, it should be a private room, but I slowly walked over to the door. Something made me glance back at the control panel. I noticed a folded sheet of paper there. I picked it up and spread it out flat. Okay, Okinawa. It was a map of Japan. One part of the map, the Hokkaido and Tohoku regions, had faded for some reason. I put it back where I found it. Beside it was a cup of coffee. White steam rose from it. White steam. It's fresh, baby. About to get shanked, eh? I felt a chill run down my spine. The fact it's still hot means that it's freshly poured. And that in turn means that there's someone else here. Preparing for their arrival, I braced myself. Who is it? Where are they hiding? And at that moment, the moment I thought that, the lights in the ceiling came on. The gray room was flooded with light.
ようこそ
Welcome. It's Yomogi, isn't it? An unfamiliar male voice, not a familiar one. I turned around and jumped back, as though repelled. Well, closed cast no more. We're going to introduce a new character. Well, how do you want it? My name is Satoru. How do you do? How do you want to die? There stood a man.
待っていたよ
I've been waiting for you.
そろそろ来る頃なんじゃないかと思っていたんでね
I just gave you amnesia. No need to thank me. The long-term side effects, we're not sure what they'll be. Your brain won't work right again. I was just thinking it's about time for you to show up. Waiting for me? Who the hell is this guy? I didn't recognize him at all. No, it's strange. Something isn't right. What is it? This feeling. I don't know this man. I've never met him. And yet, within the memory store in my hippocampus, fragments of something almost forgotten resurfaced and submerged again and again. I almost felt as though I'd known him for years. It was the same feeling I had when I met Yomogi and Yuni. Is this connected to my lost or maybe transplanted memories too? What if this guy is, some sort of weird time-traveling version of Yunichi? We'll continue.
お前は
You. I managed to wring a few words from my dry
お前
throat.
は誰だ
Who are you? Hearing those words, the man shrugged his shoulders in disappointment.
まったく困ったことだ
Really? This is quite troublesome.
本当に何もかも忘れてしまったようだね
It seems you really did forget everything.
私は榎本直也
I am Imoto Naoya. Huh.
どうだいこれでもまだ思い出せないかい
How about now? Still don't remember? This is annoying, because I know I'm supposed to remember. It's like talking to the fourth wall in a sense. Where did you remember that name from? Come on, player! You read that somewhere! I don't remember it. I don't remember it. I suck! As I thought, I know this man. No, I knew him? But even when I heard this name, I couldn't remember a single thing about him. Or maybe it's not that I couldn't, but that I didn't want to. Am I subconsciously blocking out my memories of this
その
guy?
顔からすると全く覚えていないということか
Since you're making a weird face, I guess you really don't.
まあいい
Well, so be it.
私のことなどどうでもいい
Never mind
今
me.
行われていることの重要性に比べたらさまつなことだ
It's a trifling matter compared to the importance of what's taking place here and now.
行われていること
What's taking place here and now? He's gonna spill the beans on the whole scheme about, like, saving the lives of Kokoro, Meizumi, and Yomogi?
わからないかい君の身に起きている事象のことだよ
You don't get it? I'm talking about what's happening to you right now. What? Don't tell me. The personality exchange. Or perhaps the person trying to kill me?
それにしても厄介なことになったものだ。
Anyway, this is quite a pain.
よもやこれほど面倒な状況になってしまうとは。
We certainly have found ourselves in a troublesome state of affairs.
こんなことなら君を時計台になど登らせるべきではなかった。
I should have never let you go up the clock tower. This guy reminds me of Sao Hiyori from Your Turn to Die. Same energy. What did he just say? What if, like the real Sao Hiyori, not like Shinsukimi, like the actual Sao. What if the shadow that appeared behind him on the clock tower had been this man? The one who pushed me off of it. And had tried again and again to kill me. Well, you had the key card. You would have a key card too, right?
おや
Oh,
どうかしたかね。
what's wrong?
お前なのか。
Was it you?
俺を時計台から突き落としたのは、
The one who pushed me off the clock tower
俺を殺そうとしていたのは
and
お
tried
前
to
なの
murder
か。
and tried to murder me? Was it you? Imomoto suddenly flashed me a chilly smile and pushed his sunglasses up to the bridge of his nose. Should I take what that is a yes or a no?
なぜ答えない。
Why won't you
お
answer?
前なのか。お前じゃないのか。答えろ。
Was it you? Or was it not you? Answer me.
答える必要などない。
I have no need to answer that.
意味のない質問だ。
I am Tsugumi. It's a meaningless question.
それもまたさまつなことなのだよ。
And yet another trifling matter.
さまつなことだと。
This guy worked for Lieblich Pharmaceuticals, so we're gonna tie that in. Trifling matter.
人一人の命がかかってるってのに、意味がないとはどういうことだ。
My life is on the line, and you're saying it's meaningless?
それともやっぱり全部お前の仕業だったってわけか。
Or has this been all you're doing from the start? and I glared at each other for a while. Well, I was glaring at Imamoto, that's for sure. But unfazed by my attitude, Inomoto, can't say it, was just watching me coyly,
知りたいのか。
or coolly. You want to know?
え、
そんなに君を殺そうとしていた人物のことが知りたいのか。
Do you really want to know who's trying to kill you?
当たり前だろ。
Obviously I do.
俺はまだ殺されるわけにはいかない。
I cannot die just yet.
第一、わけも分からず殺されなきゃならない道理がどこにある。
And first of all, why should I have to die for God knows what reason?
犯人をとっ捕まえて片っ端から事情を聞き出してやるんだ。
I'll catch the killer and then I'll make them tell me everything. Looking away from me, Inomoto
意味の
muttered.
ない行為だと思うがね。
I don't think that would do any good though.
今の君が知ったところで余計に混乱するだけだ。
Even if you did find out, as you are now, it would only serve to confuse you.
どういう意味だ。
What do you mean?
まあいい。
Oh well.
そんなに知りたいのなら後で見せてやろう。
If you want to know that badly, I'll show you later.
見せる。
Show?
ちょうど先ほどデータを整理したんでね。
I just finished organizing all the data from before when you got here. Inomoto ignored my question and
君
continued.
の欲する場面を望むままにお見せすることができよう。
I can show you the scene you wish to see just as you wish to see it. What's going on? What's he going on about? What the hell does that mean?
まあもっとも先ほども言ったように今の君が見ても意味がないと思うがね。
But as I said before, even if I showed you to you as you are now, it would be meaningless.
それに
Besides,
あくまでわかるのは表面上の出来事だ。
in the end, it would barely scratch the surface.
本当に重要なこと、君の内面で起きていることまでは伺い知れない。
What's truly important, what's happening within you, you can't even imagine. Happening within me? Is he talking about the personality exchange phenomenon?
わかるだろ。
Do you get it?
本当に重要なことは目に映る事象ではない。
What's truly important is not what your eyes can see.
真実は二つの目なんかでは見ることはできない。
The truth can't be seen with a pair of eyes alone.
真理は
The truth. Inomoto raised his index finger. Wow, that's funny because I actually was doing that even though I don't have a camera to prove it. I was saying those were lines with an index finger raised. Inomoto raised his index finger and gently touched it to his forehead. Okay, well, I didn't do that part.
真理はここで見るのだ。
This is where you truly see the truth. I was gonna say is that like the third eye? I don't know why, but Inamoto's words momentarily overwhelmed me. I had no idea what he was talking about. Talking about the third eye, baby! Blink Winkle V2! Or this would be V1 because this is 2011. This is before 2017 and 2034. But his words cut right to the heart. As though I'd cast a spell over me. No, that's not it. Maybe I knew it from the beginning. That there was a meaning behind Inamoto's words.
さあ、ここまで言えば十分だろ
Now then, this should be
う。
satisfactory.
今の君に必要な情報は、知るべきことは、君の身の保証のことなんかではない。
What you need to know right now, the things you must know, don't simply concern your physical safety.
最も重要なこと、それを説明しよ
I'll explain the most important parts to you.
う。何のことを言ってるか、もちろん分かっているだろ
It's like, I give you specific directions. Eat all of the food in the shelter cabin. Do you know what I'm talking about? Don't you? Don't
人
you?
格交換だな。
The personality exchange?
ご名答。
Correct.
やっぱり君は頭がいい。
As I thought, you are no fool. Inamoto curved his lips into an over-wide grin.
さて、どこから説明しようか。
Well, where shall I begin? With those words, Inamoto walked over to the chair in front of the console.
というより、君はどこまで覚えている分かっているのかな
Rather, I wonder, how far back do you remember? Inamoto sat down, leaning against the back of the chair, and asked that to me.
まず、話はそれからだ。
Let's start from there.
俺が分かっていること。
What I know?
そうだ。話してくれたまえ。
Yes, please tell me. Inamoto laid an elbow on the armrest and propped his chin in his hand, urging me to begin. Trinity. I closed my eyes and thought over everything I come to understand thus far. After that, I softly resumed speaking. About my proposition R. R1, the personality exchange. My goals at both Asogi Island and Mount Akakura. Utsumi and Otori. In regards to R1, Inamoto took great interest in it, and I even managed to come across new realizations from time to time as I listened to him speak. However, he had no interest in R2 and R3, and it seemed like he was ignoring me outright when I brought them up. Let me look at that again. Interesting. All he cares about the personality exchange. Once I finished, Inamoto leaned back in his chair.
ブラボー
Bravo. And congratulated me with a smattering of light applause, which sounded like a sarcastic slow clap.
いや、見事だ。
No, that was truly splendid.
よくもまあ限られた情報の中からそこまで導き出せたものだ。
You did well in deriving that much from such limited information.
素晴らしい。
Magnificent.
青鷺島と赤倉岳の転移。
A transfer between Asogi Island and Mount
青
Akakura.
鷺島から赤倉岳への転移は、その発生時刻に規則性はなく、完全なランダム。
Transfers from Asogi Island to Mount Akakura do not occur at predetermined intervals, but completely at random.
しかし、赤倉岳から青鷺島への転移の場合は、33分間という時間内で現象は維持され、元に戻る。
However, when it comes to the transfers from Mount Akakura to Asogi Island, the phenomenon maintains for a duration of 33 minutes before changing back.
この転移は同時並行的に発生するのではなく、1年間のブランクを挟んで行われる。
These transfers do not occur in the exact point in time, but rather with a period of 1 year in between them.
つまり、2011年と2012年の間で行われている。
In other words, they happen between the periods of 2011 and 2012.
要するに時間跳躍と人格交換を一緒に行ってるということなんだろ。
Which should mean that the time jump and personality exchange happened together, right? Inamoto used his finger to push the bridge of his sunglasses up his nose and slowly nodded.
その通りだ。
Precisely.
大枠については、だがね。
On the outside, that is. That meant that my reasoning wasn't just mere speculation, but that it wasn't too far from the truth. I gotta pause momentarily here. Okay. Basically, I just had this urge to look up stuff about the Gestalt edition, so that's why I did that. But anyway, it's just that there's a The version of the game that I'm playing right now, I feel like might get me in trouble. Like, I'm not like several parts in. Well, I'm gonna stop recording right here, actually, even though I just paused and came back. So we're gonna stop here, and then, yeah, pick up right here next time. We're going to get this big plot revelation from this new
でも
character.
いくつかわからないことがある。
So save Trinity. Then you go to title. Yes. Save the system data. I'm going through this list. We haven't got to incident in Svea yet, right? So we haven't necessarily cleared that part. As Satoru. Let's see here. We skipped a scene between pure Aternus and transference. That's interesting. So on scenes we're 112 out of 154. More than 2/3 of the way through. And I think on pictures we're actually made no progress whatsoever, correct? Okay, I'll stop recording right here.